All right, let's talk about something that's absolutely critical to, well, pretty much everything you do, but it's also something we rarely think about. We're going to be demystifying self-awareness. But before we dive in, I've got a question for you. What's the single most important tool that you use every single day to solve problems, to deal with people, to get anything done? Just take a second. What is it?
The answer? It's you. Your personality, your quirks, your history, that entire package is the main tool you use to navigate the world. Okay, so let's really dig into that idea. I mean, if you are your most important tool, then it makes sense that understanding how that tool actually works is kind of fundamental to using it well, right? You know, in fields like therapy and social work, they actually have a name for this. It's called use of self. And as Neil Thompson puts it, it's this idea that our personality itself is the very instrument we use to make good things happen. So the bottom line is, if you want to be effective, you've got to know your own instrument inside and out. So how in the world do we get to know this instrument? Well, that brings us to the heart of self-awareness, which it isn't just one thing. It's more like a two-way street. It's about looking inward and then understanding how what's inside projects outward. Here's a fantastic definition from Bernard. Self-awareness is all about learning two key things. First, your own internal world. You know, your feelings, attitudes, values, the whole shebang. And second, the effect all that internal stuff has on the people around you. So yeah, you can really think of it as two sides of the same coin. On one side, you've got your internal world, and on the other, you've got your external impact. Real self-awareness, that's the bridge connecting the two. You can't really have one without the other. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. When we do try to look inward, we often hit a common snag. We focus on some parts of ourselves and just completely ignore others. So let's see what that actually looks like. There's this super simple framework called Think, Feel, Do. It covers what we think, what we feel, and what we do. But according to Thompson, what happens most of the time is we get so caught up in our thoughts and our actions that we skip right over the feel part. We completely ignore our own emotional landscape. And what happens when you ignore those feelings? Do they just vanish? Nope, they stick around. Thompson uses this really powerful phrase for what happens to unacknowledged anger. It becomes a smoldering resentment. And guess what? This smoldering resentment actually has a clinical name you've probably heard: passive-aggressive behavior. Murphy and Oberlin describe it as that hidden anger that just sort of bubbles under the surface. It makes us irritable and harsh, and we don't even know why. It's the reason a totally innocent question can suddenly feel like a personal attack. Ever felt that? This gap, this space between what we're actually feeling and what we think we're putting out into the world, that leads us directly to our blind spots. You know, the parts of ourselves that are obvious to everyone else, but we just can't see. A perfect example of a blind spot in action: sending mixed messages. This is when your words say one thing, but your body language is screaming the exact opposite. You know the scene. Someone asks if you're okay, and you snap back, "I'm fine," through clenched teeth. Yeah, that. So how do we start to see these things for ourselves? Well, there's a really helpful tool for shining a light on these blind spots. It's called the Johari window. Okay, so this model divides our awareness into 4 quadrants. You've got the open area, which is stuff you and others both know. The hidden area, stuff only you know. The unknown area, a total mystery to everybody. But the crucial one for this conversation is right here, the blind area. This is the stuff other people know about you that you are completely unaware of. This is where those mixed messages live. And the only way to shrink this blind spot is by getting feedback from other people. So we've covered what self-awareness is and where our gaps might be. But let's get practical. What are the real-world consequences of all this? I mean, why does it actually matter so much? Well, let's start with the risks. When you consistently ignore your own feelings, your own limits, your own needs, what do you think happens? You get burnout. And this isn't just, "I'm tired." This is a state of total emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion from way too much stress for way too long. It's what happens when your internal battery is completely drained because you weren't paying attention to all the warning lights flashing on your dashboard. But hey, it is not all doom and gloom. Not at all. Because on the flip side, developing your self-awareness is one of the most powerful things you can do to build stronger, better relationships. Take this concept from the psychologist Carl Rogers: unconditional positive regard. It's about accepting and supporting someone no matter what they say or do.
Now, that is incredibly difficult. It requires huge self-control. You have to be aware of your own judgments, your own gut reactions in the moment, and then consciously choose not to act on them. That, right there, is self-awareness in action.
And when you put it all together, what does it lead to? Empowerment. As Thompson says, empowerment is all about taking more control over your own life. But the act of doing that forces you to face who you really are, your strengths and your weaknesses. And this creates this amazing feedback loop. The more you understand yourself, the more control you have. And the more control you have, the deeper your self-awareness gets.
So, we end right where we started, with a question. We've talked about the self as a tool, about our neglected feelings, and the impact we have on others. So the final question I want to leave you with is this: what's in your blind spot?